all go? Where did that sort of vim and vigor of life just suddenly, and it's, before you know, you blink it and it's gone, isn't it? And I think the last year the last year and a bit, it's taught us quite a few things, hasn't it? It's taught us how to reflect more. I certainly have reflected more on my journeys because I've had a little bit more time to sort of think about things. But it's interesting what Keith and Mary shared, and it was that lady Becky, and it just said how to find my faith and how to use it. Okay, and then I was thinking, well, Corinne was living in beautiful worship, you know, and anyway, I just really felt God say how to find my voice and how to use it. Because we're all gifted with something that we can use with one another. And most of the time, you know, it's either a smile or it's a touch when we relate to do that. We're just getting back to that, aren't we? But a lot of times, God's given us a voice, whether you use it for music, whether you use it for talking, for preaching, whatever you do with it, whether you use it for shouting at your kids sometimes. But he's given us something, hasn't he? And it's something that we can speak to one another with. And I thought it's another interesting thing that Martina said. And you said, sometimes we're not healed instantly. But I've just ad-libbed this now, and I've just gone, but our journey, our voice allows us to speak to others, doesn't it? And then that got me thinking about Romans. Right, so let's just go there a minute. Let me just find it. Talk amongst yourselves. Right, here we go. I have put a little sticker in it. I just found it a minute ago. Romans 15, 5-6. May the God of steadfastness and encouragement grant you to live in harmony with one another in accordance with Christ Jesus, so that together you may with one voice glorify God and our Father of our Lord Jesus Christ. And it's this whole thing that sometimes we find ourselves in places that we didn't expect. So for Martina, she didn't expect to be going to the hospital, did you? Not in that sort of way. I mean, I know you're ill, but you didn't expect that. And I think when I look back on this journey of sort of 7 years ago, when I was stood in the shower and God said to me, I want you to become a vicar. And I laughed so hard, I actually wet myself because I thought it was like the funniest joke ever. I wasn't even part of a church in England then. I was just, I was part of a free church. And yet, in this miraculous turn of events and of journeys and of leaving Kidderminster to move to Manchester, after phoning Kelvin, my now boss, and saying, so how do you become a vicar? And he says, oh, well, you have to attend the Church of England church. And the first thing I did was pull a big face at that and thought, oh, I don't want to go there. And then he said, well, then you have to get selected and you have to go through all your selection training. Then you have to do this and you have to do that. I said, look, rough terms, how long does it take? And he said, 7 years just to get to the point of being a curate. And I said, you know what, I haven't got time for that. And then we moved to Manchester. And we just saw God do incredible things where we found ourselves, and in the church we found ourselves Vineland. And then when you think you've got it all settled, when you think you've got the path sorted and you're going in the right direction as you're thinking, I'm working in the prisons, we're seeing healings on the streets, left, right and centre. The church is just beautiful. The people there are just beautiful. My thought was never to move back here. As far as I was concerned, I was going to stay in Manchester forever because it got everything I needed. And then the door opens for Willardine. And you think, oh, okay. And then we find out that Sarah's dad is not well either. He ends up with prostate cancer. And then we find ourselves moving back. And that was a difficult time. And you kind of think, why are we doing this? And then God just steps in, because then I get to meet you lot. And I get to live just down the road from Keith and Mary, who were amazing. Right? Just let me just tell you, as neighbours go, they're amazing. And we do miss you. But if you think about it, God orchestrates things for his purposes and his goods, doesn't he? And sometimes we find ourselves in very difficult scenarios. So Willardine, as beautiful as it is utter chaos at the same time. Okay? Just because of the people that you're living with and you're trying to help along their journeys of coming out of what they're coming out of. And yet, I always remember this one girl used to come down on a night time, and just before 10 o'clock, we used to give them their medication before they went to bed, and they would have pills upon pills upon pills. Most of them I can still remember the names of. And this one girl, and she was quite a big girl, and she'd come to the counter and she'd slam a fist on the counter like, "Give me my drugs," like that. And I'd be like, "Oh, okay, hang on a sec." So I'd get a little sheet out and I'd tick off what she could have, and I'd go to the pill cupboard and I'd count them all out individually and put them all in these little canisters. And then she used to stand there like thrown out and say, "I want something else, I want something else." And I just said, "Look, what's on this sheet is all you're allowed to have. That's all I can sign for." Okay. And she used to be giving me grief at the window at 10 o'clock at night. We were just about to clock off. And as she walked away, I used to shout her and go, "Hey, let's just call her Bronwyn. Bronwyn, come here." And she go, and come walking back up to the window and go, I just say to her, "Do you know what? You're amazing, you are. You're incredible. What a beautiful daughter of the King you are." And her face would just lift and it would change. And in that moment, I have an opportunity in what seems like a chaotic sort of mess to speak the joy of Jesus. And then we fast forward to where we are now. And I was thinking, I was studying, because I work in the high school at the minute, and now I work at the sixth form college as well. So I'm a chaplain for the sixth form college, which is incredible. But I get to go into the high school, and I go into Ludlow High School, all day Thursdays, and if there's any emergencies that crop up. And I've been working with this lad in the art department. He's a student and he's doing his art project, and he's been struggling with some stuff. So I just sort of started working alongside him, and we're working on this project together, and he's done such an amazing job on it. It's absolutely beautiful. I think he's just beyond excelled himself, but he's just had a little confidence to do stuff. And we were talking the other day, and he was just saying to me, he just said, "So has Jesus been up to anything this week?" And I went, yeah. So I was praying for a lady the other day, got healed the knee, and then I prayed for somebody else, and God did this, and then God spoke to me about this, and then we were talking about this, and then I was talking to my wife about that. And he's going, "Oh, right, okay, yeah." And he said, "I wrote a song the other day." I said, "Oh, okay." Now, it's not a song like Career Right. He's basically into the Sex Pistols and Ian Dury and all those sort of like, so he's very much a young lad out of his time. He really loves the sort of anarchy type music. He even dresses in a mod coat and stuff like that. And he said, yeah, I wrote this song. And I said, "It's not the song like you wrote for your girlfriend, is it?" Because he wrote this song for his girlfriend about how he walked home from her and he saw a drug dealer, and, it wasn't even a song of love. I was thinking, that's interesting. And he said, yeah, I wrote this song to God. And I said, "Oh, okay, what is it then?" And he said, "Well, I've been dead for an hour and a half." And he said, "I'm standing before God and I'm really angry with him." And I said, "So why are you angry with him?" And he went, "Because of all this stuff that's going on." I said, "What stuff?" "Well, the pandemic, and he lets this happen, and he lets that happen, and he lets that happen, and he lets that happen." And I went, "Oh, okay." I said, "You know what the great thing about God is?" And he said, "What's that?" I said, "God's got massive shoulders and he doesn't mind you being angry with him. I'm telling you that for starters." And he goes, "Yeah, but..." I said, "Yeah, but what?" And he said, "Well, I've asked God for loads of stuff." And I went, "Oh, that's interesting. Okay, so what you asked God for?" He said, "Well, stuff." I said, "What sort of stuff?" He didn't go into it. I said, "Look, if you're asking for stuff like winning the lottery, not sure that's going to happen. If you're asking for peace, and you're asking for joy, and you're asking for his help, and when you really feel on the edge of your rope, when you feel like you're going to throw yourself off the end, that's where he is." And he went, well, I asked him for stuff and he hasn't turned up and he hasn't done anything." I said, "Okay." I said, "We used to have this when we used to go out on street outreach." I said, "When we were in Birmingham or Kidderminster or Worcester or Manchester or wherever we found ourselves," I said, "you'd go up to somebody and they'd go, 'You know what, I've been crying out for God to Yonks for some help and he hasn't answered.' And then you just go, 'Yeah, but I'm here.' And sometimes we forget, right, that God does move in the miraculous and the beautiful ways, and he can touch lives wherever he wants to. But 90% of the time, he wants to do it through us, doesn't he? Each and every single one of us. So I'm explaining this to this lad, and he goes, "Yeah, but..." And I'm going, "Yeah, but what?" And he goes, well, I don't know." He said, "Anyway, it's your job to make me believe." I went, is it? Is it my job to make you believe about Jesus, is it? He went, yeah, it's your job. And I went, where's that on the job description? He said, yeah, but you're going to become a vicar. I said, that doesn't mean it's my job to make you believe stuff. I said, my job is to keep pointing to the truth of who he is. I'm just a signpost. We're all, each one of us here, are just signposts pointing to Jesus, aren't we? And he went, yeah, but you've got to make me believe. And I went, okay, how do I make you believe? He said, well, I don't know. And I said, the only way I can make you believe, right? What if I took a gun out now and put it to your head and said, now you've got to give your life to Jesus? What would you do? And he went, well, I'll probably do it. And I said, yeah, but would you be sincere about it? And he said, well, I'd be sincere at that moment, wouldn't I? I said, yeah, you'd be sincere at that moment. But as soon as I took my gun away and as soon as I walked off, what are you going to do then? You'd probably phone the police on me. I said, what sort of faith is that? And he said, yeah, I suppose I see your point. I said, anyway, I've got to go. We'll chew it over the next time I see you. And then I walked off and left him. We have been given a voice by Christ. And we find ourselves in maybe sometimes odd situations when we need to use it. The other day, I was at the skate park because I like to take my youngest up there because he likes to razz around on his stunt scooter. And I got surrounded by about 12 youths, okay? And forget social distancing because they're past that now, right? You know, so I'm out in the open air and they're like, one guy's tickling my beard like that. And I said, I hope you've washed your hands because I've got to touch that after. And they sit there and they start talking to you and they said, you really becoming a vicar, are you? I said, yeah. Are you doing that? I said, well, let me just tell you a little story. And I started to give them the testimony of how God saved me. And then they just start talking about love and relationships. And I have a girl sit down next to me because we're sat on this piece of concrete. She's 15. And she starts talking to me about the amount of sexual partners she's had. Okay. And at 15, she's had 6. 6 at 15. And I looked at her and I said, can I tell you what love looks like? She said, what do you mean? I said, I want to tell you what love looks like because it doesn't look like that. And I didn't crush her and I didn't admonish her and I didn't go, 6. Oh my life, I can't believe I had 6 already. I hope you use protection. I hope you do this. None of that. I said, I just want to tell you what love looks like. And I sat with her and I looked at her and I just said, you know, you are a beautiful daughter of the King. He loves you. And what would it look like if you looked in the mirror and actually loved yourself? What would that look like? Because that's what we're all searching for. We're all searching for meaning. We're all searching for love. We're all searching for our place in this world wherever we think we find ourselves. We all want to be recognized. And that's no different for her. And you get these moments where you get to sit and you just get to gently love her. I just told her that, you know, that sometimes when we go with people, we give a little piece of ourselves away. And I start to talk about my own daughter because she's got a boyfriend now. And I say, but I have an expectation upon her. Not that she has to be this and this, but that she'll be just open with me and she'll just be honest with me and we can just continue that loving father-daughter relationship and also with Tom. But I can just have a loving relationship with him as well. I love them both in the midst of whatever they're navigating in their lives. And then these lads come round who they know and they start taking the mick out of her. And I said, hang on a second, mate, I'll just stop you there. There's no need to insult her like that. Yeah, but I said, no, there's no buts. Just stop it, all right. Yeah, all right, sir. And then I start talking to them. I said, what are you lads up to? They start talking to me about drugs. Start talking about weed. Start talking about all sorts of stuff that they're getting up to. I go, listen, if you never listen to my drugs talks I do to you every year in school, this stuff's not good for you. Why do you want to do that? And you see, in that moment, you've got these young people who are putting their lives out to you like a plate. They're handing it to you like somebody would give you dinner. And I'm not looking at it and going, oh, I don't want that, throwing it up the wall. What I'm doing is sitting and going, okay, Holy Spirit, I am completely at my depth here. What do you want to say? And when I can't find my voice, he gives me a voice. So I got to talk to these lads, and I was just talking to them for ages. I said, let me pray for you. And the next thing you know, we're all wrapped up in a little prayer. And it's nothing onerous, it's nothing big. It's just, you know, God, just bless these boys and girls. Whatever they're going to do tonight, keep them safe. You've got your eyes upon them. You know what they're doing. You'll bring your fulfillment through at the point that you want to do it. And it reminds me then of Philippians 1:6. I am confident of this, that the one who began a good work among you will bring it to the completion by the day of Jesus Christ. Now, I'm not handing out Bible tracts, and I'm not saying that's not a bad thing. I'm not asking them to give their lives to Jesus, because I've just recognised in the journey that I'm on. Well, let me just wind that back a bit. When I was first a Christian and God dramatically saved me in a living room, my goal was to get everybody I ever met saved, literally. And I would pray for people, and God would do incredible miracles in spite of me. God would do incredible miracles with the person in front of me. But I wouldn't leave it until they'd given their lives to Jesus. And you know what that becomes like? That becomes like that gun to the head again. Because you've got this 6'4" bloke, I know I'm sat there, 6'4" bloke standing in front of you, going, come on, you know, you want to give your life to Jesus. Come on, come on, come on, come on, come on. And they go, yeah, I'll give my life to Jesus. Okay, say this after me. And then we're away. And I used to go home and I used to do this. That's another one, Jesus. Now, I didn't have a book, thankfully, but in the back of my head, I had a running total. And when I used to stand at church on a Sunday morning and I had my own oil, I used to turn round, and in pride, I'd look back and go, wow, look how many people are here. Look how many people are in my squad. And then I'd look across and I'd look at everybody else and go, so you brought today then? Have you brought? Come on, what's the matter with you? And I'll be the first one up the front saying, yeah, man, you want to see the miracles we've seen this week? Yeah, look what Jesus did. And all of it was done in a genuineness. It wasn't done in a malicious sort of way. But you know what God does then? He takes the pride away. And then he sticks you in the desert for a bit. I remember the day that God told me that I had to go up street outreach. He said, you got to let it go. And you know what my first words were? Get behind me, Satan. And then somebody else came up to me and said, I think it's time we gave up the street outreach. And I'm just going, get behind me, Satan. And then somebody else came up to me and just said, I think we need to go up the street outreach now. And after the third time, I just thought, maybe that's you then, God. And it took me 6 months to let go of that. 6 months to lay it down, because I would try at every point, even if I didn't go out myself, to try and rouse the team to go out. 6 months I spent arguing with God that he'd make the biggest mistake of his life. 6 months later, we left that church. Now, I'm not saying that if we hadn't given up street outreach, we wouldn't have left, because there was just certain other aspects around it that were going on that were just not right. But actually, the only thing that kept me there, right, was because of the street outreach, because of what God was doing. And yet, when God takes you on that journey, you hops you on to the next place where you can feel completely broken. What he does in his love is he takes the best bits of you and then just really encourages that again, doesn't he? And I found myself in a place where I was just marinated in Jesus all the time, which I hadn't been marinated in for a long time. Now I find myself now in a tradition that I wouldn't say I feel 100% comfortable with. I'm still finding my feet in it. But I tell you what I have learned in the midst of all this thing of one voice glorifying together is I have brothers and sisters around me that maybe don't have the belief that I have. Maybe they're on a different journey to what I am. But I get to encourage them. Hopefully, like I'm encouraging you tonight. Because I think about 7 years ago and where I find myself today. If you'd have told me 7 years ago, in 7 years' time, you're going to be a vicar, I would have laughed you out of the building. And yet, here I find myself with my robes hanging upstairs, with my vicar shirts handmade, because I haven't got a standard vicar body. So they've had to sort of alter them all the places they shouldn't think they have to alter them. Instead of going that way, they have to go that way. So the woman phoned me up and just said, oh, by the way, we need to take 4 inches out your waist. I said, well, why is that? She said, because you're not a standard pattern. I said, oh, okay, whatever. And they fit like a glove. And you know what? It feels good. And it feels really scary. And I feel completely out of my depth. And that's not a bad thing either. In Luke 24:36, while they were talking about this, Jesus stood amongst them and said to them, peace be with you. And they were startled and terrified and thought they were seeing a ghost. And he said to them, why are you troubled? We find ourselves in scenarios sometimes and we find ourselves troubled. We might find ourselves where we need to speak up, but we're troubled about speaking up. Maybe we're a little fearful. Maybe we don't know the right words to say. Maybe we think we've got nothing to say. Yet, Jesus comes and he says, peace be with you. Why are you troubled? And it's not that we can't be troubled, but why are we troubled? What are we troubled about? Are we troubled about the world? Well, yeah, of course we are. Of course, we're worried about Palestine and Israel at this moment in time. Of course, we're worried about COVID. Of course, we're troubled about this. Of course, we're troubled about our economies. But you know, in those moments, even when we think we haven't got anything to say, we just say, peace be with you. And then we listen. And we have a vast range of ages here. I won't pick out people's ages or anything like that, from young to old. And sometimes when we get into the latter end of the years, we think we've got less to say. Actually, you've got more to say. Because what we live in a world now that lacks a lot of experience. Okay? Parents, as they get younger and younger, lack the experience of what you've been through or what I've been through. Because a lot of times I talk to kids and they go, oh, well, I've done this, this and this. And they go, especially when you're talking about jobs, how many jobs you had? I said, well, I worked there for like 7 years and I worked there for 10 years. Well, how old are you? So I'm 50. Oh, you're not 50, are you? And I go, oh, thanks, kids. How old do you think I am? And they all start with about 38, which is really sweet of them. But we, in the midst of trouble, can bring peace. Wherever we find ourselves, whether you're like Martina in the middle of a hospital, the place that you know you need to be, but not the place you want to be. Talking to nurses about a colouring book. And the nurse is going, well, actually, can you pray for me? When you find yourself in the midst of a load of school kids in a school class, and they're going to you, what about this then, and what about that? And they're firing all these questions at about 50 rates of knots. And you're just going, let's just take one at a time. Well, I think that looks like that looks like that, and that looks like that. And at the end of it, you have 3 kids stand up and say, well, how do I get what you've got? In the middle of an RE class. And you go, are you taking the mick? Because that's what I thought they were doing. I thought they were taking the mick out of me. 3 kids stood up. And I said, are you taking the mick? And they went, no, we want what you've got. And I went, oh, well, I think it looks like this. Took me off guard. Then we did some simple prayer together and they went, was that it? I go, yeah, that's it. Great, isn't it? Welcome to Jesus. Or you've got a teacher that's just telling you about a dad that's just died from COVID. He's gone in for a routine operation. And we hear this story time and time and time again, don't we? They go for a routine operation and they come out with something else, or they don't come out. And you're standing in the corridor and you just say, can I just pray with you? And you don't know what to say. But actually, you just go, do you know what? Peace be with you. And I want to encourage each and every one of you. Psalm 23, one of our favourites, one of my favourites. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. Now, we know that the psalm goes further on and tells us Jesus what he's going to do. But the Lord is our shepherd, and we shall not want. So wherever you find yourself, whoever you find yourself in front of, whether you're talking to your neighbour, whether you're talking to people in shop, whether you're talking to people at cafes, in hospitals, at schools, wherever you find yourself in your work, whether you're playing music to somebody, whether you're just walking around the streets, the Lord is your shepherd, and you shall not want. Because you are his beautiful children. And sometimes we just need to remind ourselves of that, of everything that we're going through and everything we find ourselves in. We need to remind ourselves who we belong to, that we are that one glorious voice, awaiting his coming again. And whatever you think you lack, you don't. I am no more gifted than any of you. When people talk to me about healings, or, well, you go and pray for them, I say, no, you go and pray for them. What's the difference in my hand to your hand? Faith, innit? It's all it ever is, faith. It's not my hand that's going to heal anybody. It's just I'm nutty enough to believe that you'll do something about it. When you're faced with something like that, listen, God can do whatever he wants to do at that point, at that time, can't he? And what you can do is bring peace into the midst of that situation. You are wonderfully and fearfully made, every single one of you. And I'll just finish with this, if that's okay. I love this prayer book, which is the Celtic prayer book, version 1, okay? Part 1 or book 1. And it says, follow the example of Brendan. And he just says this: Lord, I will trust you. Help me to journey beyond the familiar and into the unknown. Give me the faith to leave old ways and break fresh ground with you. Christ of the mysteries, can I trust you to be stronger than each storm in me? Do I still yearn for your glory to lighten on me? I will show others the care that you've given me. I determine amidst all uncertainty always to trust. I choose to live beyond regret and let you recreate my life. I believe you will make a way for me and provide for me if only I trust and obey. I will trust in the darkness and know that my times are still in your hand. I believe you for my future, chapter by chapter, until the story is written. Focus my mind and my heart upon you, my attention always on you without alteration. Strengthen me with your blessing and appoint me to the task. Teach me to live with eternity in view. Tune my spirit to the music of heaven. Feed me and somehow make my obedience count for you. Amen.